Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the sixth episode of Paradise, the Hulu series, an episode called You Asked for Miracles. Darren is here with me again.
Hello, hello.
And before we get going, a few things I wanted to bring up. First of all, I had announced just last week, Darren, that if we got to 100 subscribers on YouTube, which I do nothing on YouTube. I'm only on YouTube, by the way, because they got rid of the Android platform for publishing podcasts. So they sent me an email and said, if you want to keep publishing to Google devices, bring the feed over to YouTube. And so I did. But I started thinking maybe I would do something in the realm of video as well. And if we get to 100 subscribers, I said, we'll do at least one episode and then we'll see how it goes. If we get some traction, maybe we'll do more of them in the future. But I said I would keep count of those subscribers, and we're up to, the last time I checked this morning was 34. So we're up to 34 subscribers.
I subscribed.
Oh, good. Great.
I subscribed last week. I struggled to find Need Some Introduction. So I searched for Need Some Intro and that came up straight away. So I clicked on it.
Hopefully that helps. I do have the link in the show notes. It's weird. They auto-generate the name, so it has like a number on the end of it. But if you just search for Need Some Intro, you'll find it. Or just click the link in our show notes. It's there. Most people have been able to find it. So hopefully, if you're hearing this, do subscribe. And if we'll see if we get some traction, we'll put out some video content there, some fun things. Sometimes I want to actually like illustrate something I'm talking about. So it could be something like that. But mostly, I think we're just going to have these conversations on camera so that people can see our beautiful faces.
Great. Good luck with that.
And of course, you're invited to participate, Darren, when that day comes, or if it comes. Okay, I had another thing I wanted to bring up. Speaking of platforms that I've been investigating, I rarely go onto Spotify. Our podcast used to be hosted on Spotify, believe it or not, back when it was called Anchor years ago. I rarely go on there because it's not one of our largest streaming platforms. For some podcasts, it's a very popular streaming platform, not so much for us. But that is to say that I very rarely go on there, and I decided to check in this week, Darren. And it turns out that Spotify has added comments on their episodes. So
interesting.
Just to anybody out there, I do respond to emails. I do respond to your YouTube comments. We had a couple just this week. I try to participate as much as I can with that feedback. But of course, unaware that Spotify had comments. So I was, logged in for the first time in quite some time and was inundated with some of those comments. Most of them, by the way, Darren, were when we were covering the Day of the Jackal. Maybe this is when they rolled out comments around that period of time. And a lot of it was just giving some additional context to like how he could have been able to shoot that character underwater, et cetera. Giving things like that, which understandable. But that's not why I bring this all up, Darren. There was one guy who commented on multiple episodes saying that he was trying to listen to this podcast, but I was utterly insufferable.
You were, not me.
I assume he's addressing me. I'm the one who's probably the insufferable one of the two of us.
Insufferable, gee.
All that is to say that insufferable or not, I assume he's not listening anymore. But anybody else who does comment there, I was not even aware there were comments there. I apologize because those were like months old and I didn't respond. Now that I know they're there, I will keep an eye on them. So do respond there if you can, and I'll try to be less insufferable over time.
I listen to my podcast through this Podcast Addict app, and I found some comments on there too. So I'm not sure if they're specific to that app or if they're pulling comments from elsewhere. It's good to see a little bit of feedback, positive and negative, I think.
I don't know how I would have access to those. Maybe I'll track them down, but I will. Hopefully they were mostly good feedback.
I do play a bit of the podcast in my car for my kids and my wife to listen to, but it doesn't last very long. They think my accent is too much of a contrast to yours, I think.
Really? Wow, interesting.
I'm like, this is how I talk normally, so I don't know what you guys are hearing.
A couple of other things I wanted to close the loop on. Just going back to Companion, by the way, already available to rent at home. Very
really?
entertaining movie. You should check it out. But I wanted to bring it up because I heard an interview with this director. It's the first movie he's directing. He's been around for quite some time. First time directing a movie. It connects to something we've discussed here on the show relatively recently. We watched a very entertaining yacht rock documentary. He is the person who plays the John Oates character in those old yacht rock videos, those viral videos from the early 2000s, which popularized the term yacht rock. So anyway, that was the director now of Companion. So that was his first minor brush with fame back 20 years ago or so. But he's been around for quite some time and finally directing a movie. So there's hope for all of us if you ever want to make a movie someday.
And he showed a lot of promise in that Companion movie. So yeah, really looking forward to see what he does next. I actually saw a film which could be a companion to Companion. It's called Subservience, and it stars Megan Fox
on Netflix. It's very popular. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I gave it a pretty brutal Letterboxd review, and yeah, I think it's so bad it's good. I think I watched it all the way through, but gee, there's some tough going in there.
I was curious about seeing it because I heard mostly negative things about it.
I can't recommend it, but yeah.
She, along with the same director, a year ago or so, also made another Netflix movie called Till Death. Did you see this one?
I didn't see that one, no.
She is handcuffed to a corpse, and I actually liked that movie, and I thought she was very good in it. So I kind of was curious to see this. And I've been passing it by many times. Maybe I'll continue to pass it by.
Yeah, she does excel at playing a soulless robot.
I got to say, she's pretty good in that Till Death movie when, it's really just her dragging his body around, and she does a pretty good job.
That actually sounds interesting.
Yeah, I would recommend it. It's, not great, but, as a casual watch, put it on the background and it'll definitely keep you intrigued, especially there's a couple of twists in there you don't see coming.
Cool.
Did you happen to see the Sly Stone documentary?
Oh, I started it. Yeah, it was interesting with the framing device, how he's asking about what black genius is, which is a phrase maybe I've heard before, but don't really understand.
Some of the interviewers don't seem to understand either.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And I'll continue that doco. Yeah, I watched 5 or 10 minutes of it. But fantastic music. Wow.
Is very good. In my review, that was my opening, was that I think that he is trying a little too hard, Questlove is, to force the story into that frame of the burden of black genius, which is a good point to be taken. And it does come around to it. Andre 3000, by the way, hugely influenced by Sly and the Family Stone, even in his fashion choices, everything. But so eloquent in this documentary and really crystallizes what I think Questlove kind of struggles to get to with some of the structure of the story. Andre 3000 just talks about how difficult it is to try to stand apart. And I mean, this is honestly difficult for any pop star, and just magnified even more so when you are a black artist. And of course, you think about Sly really breaking genre back in the 1960s when this is all illustrated in the documentary. But you did like Motown, or you did R&B. You really didn't try to do like a psychedelic R&B, inventing funk for the first time. Like no one was doing that at the time. And there was this additional burden on him to invent a new form of music practically. Anyway, the music's great. The archive footage is great. Sly is not dead, by the way. He's alive. Hard to believe considering how tough a life he had. Mostly inflicted upon himself by himself. I was looking forward to it, and it was very, very good. I really highly recommend it. And hopefully more people are introduced to the music. You will recognize the music in the music we hear now, like the Rhythm Nation, Janet Jackson. The whole backbeat is a sample of a Sly and the Family Stone song. And of course, samples in hip hop and even covers in contemporary music. So I think it's kind of a forgotten artist that is incredibly influential. And anyway, really good. Check it out. It's on Hulu if you have Hulu.
Oh yeah, I saw it on Disney Plus.
Yes.
You don't think of that type of music coming from the 60s. I mean, when you think of
Right.
60s, it's more like the UK rock and roll or the American rock and roll. So yeah, I was shocked that he goes back that far.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff. It's so funny when you see how he was this really influential San Francisco DJ. And then he's like recording his first album and he's 20. And I'm like, when was he this famous DJ? Was he 18 years old? Like, what's going on?
It's wild.
The wild 60s. And some things that are coming out this week that I want to mention. Reacher. Did you watch Reacher? Have you seen this show?
I was a big fan of the first season of
Same
Reacher.
thing.
Yeah, it's a bit of a fantasy for like
Right.
a middle-aged male.
Exactly. Exactly.
The second season I wasn't as into, although it did have that guy from Terminator 2 as the villain.
Yeah.
Cool, and he's a great character. Rich is awesome.
I never even finished season 2. That was kind of a miscalculation in taking the one-man wrecking crew, which is the appeal of that first season, and trying to make it into this government conspiracy show. I just lost interest in the show. It wasn't terrible. I just didn't finish it.
Yeah.
It seems to be that this is going right more back in what appeals to me in the show. So just want to call it out. I don't know if we're going to cover it here in the podcast, but it is coming out. It's hugely popular, of course.
It's a really easy watch as well.
Yes, I mean you really don't have to pay too much attention, and honestly, even season 1 is much of like a guilty pleasure for me. That did you see the what's the ungentleman the Guy Ritchie film
I know the film you're talking about, Ungentlemanly Warfare, or something.
The League of Ungentlemanly Warfare, something like that.
Yeah, that's a terrible title. I saw
Right.
most of it, half of it, and he's really cool in that too.
He's a lot of fun in there, and I think that he doesn't really get to show off that charisma here in the Reacher character as much. He really gets to be this robotic, almost killing machine. But I mean, which is fun to watch. But I hope he gets to play other variations of this character. It's still fun to watch for sure. Zero Day coming out Thursday, whenever, very soon. Another conspiracy thriller, Robert De Niro, and an all-star cast here as well. And it is some kind of zero-day attack in the United States. They've knocked out all the power, and then it's unraveling this conspiracy. This is on Netflix, and another, I'm sure it's going to be very popular, maybe something we dip into next week as well.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into this episode. The title here, You Asked for Miracles. I'm not sure how that ties into this episode. Do you know what the reference might be to?
I do not know.
Oh, no problem. I'm just wondering if you caught it because I didn't actually catch it. Anyway, let's get into the episode proper. We see Xavier with his wife finally in flashback.
Yes.
Her name is Terry. I don't know the actress's name, but I'll know it next week because I think she's going to be a much bigger part of the flashback episode next week. She's very hard-headed. He makes a point of this early on, and of course, it is more pronounced as the episode continues, or at least his interpretation of her. What did you think about the sociological experiment that the daughter pulls off with making this bully in the class eat all the cake?
Oh, it's hilarious. She's a chip off the block.
Yes, apparently. Maybe it detrimental to her as well by the end of the episode.
Her mother's a firecracker making a scene.
Make a scene, that's right.
Great to finally see her. We've heard so much about her, and I don't believe we've seen her before at all.
No, that's right.
Yeah, so it's good to actually find out something about her, that she's a doctor and that she goes by her maiden name and her married name, which is very important to her. And trips to Atlanta. I'm not sure what she's doing there.
Lots of trips to Atlanta. We still don't know why. It's just very important to her, apparently.
Very important.
Well, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, is in Atlanta. So that's one possible reference. So do you think this is a good experiment for, first of all, the kid didn't have to eat the cake.
The kid did not have to eat it, no. What was the word? It's not food inequality.
Inequity, right? Not inequality, it's inequity.
Inequity, great word.
Inequity is the result of inequality, right? Is that what she was saying?
And I like how that ties into the theme of
absolutely.
Post-apocalyptic event.
They're starting to introduce these themes. I don't know how much time they have left to actually explore them, to be honest, but they are starting to bring up these themes, the idea of that inequity in the distribution of resources. And of course, you have the billionaires within this community, this gated community, which is already, it's surrounded by a screen, these distracted people who get all their needs met and are unaware of all the misery outside of their walls. And then there's this question as to like, do you participate in that or not? But of course, the cake metaphor here is the fact that all the good things left in the world are inside that mountain, but that's not where all the people are, right? We may choose to believe that, but that's not actually what's happening. And she does say, Xavier, you don't always make a scene, but someday you're going to make a scene, and she can't wait to see it. So he's going to make a scene this week for sure.
He certainly does. The first, 15, 20 minutes of this episode rush by. There's like this underlying soundtrack of drums, tribal drums or something, a little bit electronic, and it's constantly moving, which I thought was very different to previous episodes. And the second half of this season is shaping up to be very different to the first half. And I like the pace, and I like the movement towards something. It was very exciting.
Exciting like Die Hard?
Wow, so many Die Hard references. I do love Die Hards. Yeah. Of course, we love the 80s references in this series.
I actually looked up his age. So Marsden and Sterling K. Brown is slightly younger, but these are both two Gen X dudes. It's like, how has Xavier never seen Die Hard as a Gen Xer? How is that possible?
Yeah, I don't know. I remember seeing Die Hard as a very young child.
Yeah, everybody saw it. I mean, if you didn't see it in the theaters, you saw it on cable for sure. Film, one of the most famous cable movies of all times. By the way, when we see Cal and him together, he walks him through the Versailles Protocol. How quickly can you get him from his office all the way to the plane? 20 minutes or less. I don't know if you saw the scenes for next week, but we literally see that happening, right? You see him, the doors open, and he's making his way to the plane. And we know that this is the day that this whole thing happened. But that's next week. But we get a little bit of the walkthrough of it this week, a little priming the pump here.
And it was really teased. Xavier asked the president straight out, what's going to happen? What's the cataclysm? And we are not being told yet.
I can't tell you for sure. But when he's like, well, my wife is leaving to Atlanta, and Cal is like, what? You can't let her go. I mean, like, that should be a pretty clear indicator that you literally cannot let her go.
Exactly. But the wife is very strong-minded, it seems. And
yes,
I could imagine trying to tell my wife not to go to something or do something, and she wouldn't listen to me either.
I do like this detail, by the way. Maybe my favorite detail of all this is that Cal has not seen Die Hard in this moment, having this conversation with Cal. Presumably within days, this cataclysm happens. And then in his rage, hating Cal, he's like, I'm going to finally see that stupid Die Hard movie. But good thing he did. It inspired this whole episode.
Yeah, really identifies with it.
Imagine that he's just like, that son of a bitch. So actually, it's a good movie. He was right. I like him. I forgive him a little bit more now.
Well, I wonder if you can take an unlimited amount of movies down to the bunker with you. Surely
he's got everything, right? He's got Rocky 3. He's definitely got Rocky 3. But does he have Cobra? That's the real question. That's a terrible movie, by the way, if you've never seen it.
Cobra, that's Stallone, isn't it?
He's hunting the serial killer. It's terrible. Oh, interesting point here, though, that he says you should see Die Hard, Xavier, because you remind me of Hans Gruber. So is this hinting the fact that Xavier is maybe, like I speculated all the way back in episode 1, that he might be the villain here? Maybe unintentionally, by the way, right? Considering the way I have questions as to what his overall plan is here, even in this episode, or how well thought out it might not be.
I'm not sure how much of a good thing being likened to Hans Gruber is.
He's charming as hell, though, I gotta say. Gruber, that is. He does say explicitly to Cal, going back to that conversation, where he says, so when does this mysterious shit actually hit the fan? So he knows that things are going to go really badly, right? So it's not like at this point they don't know something cataclysmic is going to happen. I guess they just don't know the details. They don't know the when. But even he seems to know that this is going to be really bad. I mean, they are planning an evacuation to like a bunker, basically.
And soon. It feels like it's he knows it's happening soon, maybe not days or weeks, but definitely within the next few months, this thing is gonna happen.
Another thing that I just noted here, I forget exactly where it is during their exchange. Cal says you can't control nature, which goes back to the idea that maybe it is something natural that you had mentioned, like in the previous episodes. But then I said, well, then why was there an explosion outside the plane? These things, I mean, obviously they're associated. We don't know why those nuclear bombs went off in Atlanta, but we do discover over the course of this episode. But that is not the cataclysm itself. That is somehow related to a cover up to something. We just don't know the details of that yet. Or do you have any speculation?
Yeah, no, I thought that was an interesting information drop about the nuclear explosions in Atlanta. So it's obviously linked somehow. So I'm very interested to find out how, because yeah, I'm still pretty determined that it's a climate event. But
And then the nuclear strikes in Atlanta seems like they are detonating, but why would they do that? I guess we need to know.
yeah, well, that's very sinister if you're bombing your own country, isn't it?
Right, exactly. In the present day, the words are still in the sky, by the way. The kids and Carl, as we saw at the very end of last episode, and his dog are all shuffled down into the basement of the bar. So that bartender is very active in the show, not just the side character. He's becoming more and more important to the show. Carl's disappearance here is very suspicious. I like how they're trying to say, who could this be? Let's see who doesn't have their monitor right now and was sitting at that desk a few hours ago. I think we all know Carl did this. So I guess it's a very good thing that he's hiding out right now.
Yeah, it's not like there's hundreds of people there.
Right. There's like 5 people working in the office in that whole space.
If there's something comes on your screen at work that's controversial, you're going to shut it down.
Right.
I don't understand why there's so much talk about, oh, we can't shut it down. We don't know how long it's going to take to come back up. It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah, that is like one of these, yada yadas that they put into these type of shows where it's like, we can't figure out any way to do it. It's like, I'm pretty sure that there's a program that does the sky thing. And this is another program that projects text. And you just need to turn that part off. And they're like, oh, we can't even find it in the code. It's so complicated.
Yeah,
it can't be that complicated.
Come on, just reboot.
Yeah, but they tried not to reboot, right? Because they're afraid it's going to break the illusion. You know what else breaks the illusion? Giant floating text in the sky.
Letters.
Plus, it takes like 15 minutes to reboot, by the way, after all that fear mongering. They could have just tried at like 3:00 in the morning when no one's looking at the sky.
Exactly. Oh, well, we'll look past that.
But of course, the message changes just to keep harping on this. And it says, do you want to know the truth? So there is no limitation on the string of the text string. So why did he use a apostrophe last week? It's even more annoying now. While all these stressing out is happening within the control room, Sinatra drops to Tarabi that she was watching her in the shower. She's just we don't want to know we don't want to know what Sinatra was doing while she was watching. We don't want to get into details. But you know what? But her husband is very absent.
Yeah, have we seen her husband or her remaining child at all yet? I don't think we have.
I mean, I guess we're going to see them next week. It seems like she is verifying that they've arrived at the end of the episode. But I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, she's so hung up on her son who passed away, which is of course is terrible, but she does have a family still. What's going on over here?
Look, the actress is doing a good job again, because she's the big bad, she's the evil stereotype person, but she also brings it back, and you always have a little bit of feeling for her. I don't know what she's doing, but she's doing it well. Where are the cameras in this lady's bathroom?
Those cameras get really small nowadays, so you have to
assume. Yeah, okay. My favorite line, she talks about Xavier dramatically eating.
Yes.
Him in the diner cutting up his steak with his sharpened blade. I mean, yes. Come on.
With the fake meat, but the same steak knife. They got to make it convincing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the psychologist, psychiatrist, counselor character, she's still not doing anything for me. Doesn't have much to do at all. I don't know why she's there.
She's so important to the plot, by the way, and she's not so ineffectual in general.
Yeah. But dramatically eating, I'm gonna think about that next time I eat steak.
He's cut the pieces into such small pieces. I gotta say, I mean, my experience with fake meat that I don't think you want to cut it that thin. It just kind of doesn't really help sell it in this very dramatic meat eating scene or a non-meat eating scene. He mentions the fact that it makes me think about the cows being led to slaughter, how they just funnel you down and you don't even see it coming. He shouldn't have made this metaphor, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Telegraphed exactly what was going to happen, didn't he?
Tarabi tries to convince him that all he needs to do, she's a real counselor here, by the way, all he needs to do, he just needs to get into a room and have a conversation with Sinatra, and they'll work all of this out. That's all you got to do. You just got to talk it through.
Fine. Great.
Yeah, like that's going to work. Sinatra is monitoring people's sex lives and everything else. What she should be doing, which should be very easy to do, by the way, is intercept these text messages. Everything's being coordinated by text, people. What's going on?
Yeah, that's right. And we do learn, don't we, that the wristbands that everyone is wearing, she can locate their position at all times or locate where they check into. Complete surveillance that she's got this place under.
It was kind of just a throwaway line, but I find it funny when she says, "Who else is offline right now?" And one of the guys says, "You'll be surprised. A lot of people are offline pretty frequently here." And I'm like, don't you have to like literally cut this thing off your wrist? Like, how are these people offline? I don't understand.
Yeah, good point. And there was only, when it came up, there was about 10 names there.
He made it sound like there was more than that. I think the 10 names were, she said she was looking for people who had some connection to him. So I think they did filter it down.
Okay.
So like I mentioned, do you want to know the truth pops up on the screen? Now they're starting to freak out. Really? We got to do something about this. Of course, Robinson, meanwhile, has gone and gotten all the guns. Ho, ho, ho. Now I have all the guns. Ho, ho, ho. Just from another Die Hard reference. And then phase 2 begins. So we have a military coup here, and this is where I think the show has these big ideas they're starting to play with, and hopefully you do explore them. But I do find it kind of weird. I don't know if the show is really willing to explore that now having a military coup. I mean, it might be a necessary evil here, but it seems to be, Xavier seems to be taking the opinion that this is a great outcome for everybody. When like, do you trust all these people? It seems like he's just rounding up people, finding people who are anti-Sinatra, or maybe want to find out what happened to their friend, for example, or just get to the bottom of it. Are these the people who are going to be leaders afterwards? Like, I mean, military coups don't usually go well, as just from historical context.
Feels like they found them all very quickly as well, which makes me think there's another little mystery that's dropped. Robinson, so something happened just before they entered the dome, which she alluded to. So it makes me think that she did have a network of heavies ready to go that was quite controversial. Maybe they had to strong arm something before they all entered the facility. So she found the army very quickly.
Well, I mean, she got those guns and they all came running. She is in love with those guns. I got to tell you, that's another thing that this show is like very pro gun. I think it's unintentional, but man, everybody in the show loves their guns.
Yeah, I don't want to be controversial. Isn't that what you guys are over there? That's our impression.
It's not all of us. I know, but there's so many guns. There's more guns than people, but the gun ownership is less than 50% of the population. They just all have many, many guns. They're very well armed.
And they were very keen to get their hands on it again, these ex-Navy SEALs.
This is a little convenient writing here. They consider bringing Jane in because they're like, hey, if we're going to go avenge your boyfriend, we really should bring her in. And they're like, oh, she's still so depressed. Let's not bother her with this right now, which is a very convenient thing to do because, obviously they don't want her to be in the in-group because that's, we know what the real deal is here, but it's a convenient way to write her out. Once again, I don't know how many of these people have been properly vetted if Jane's just among them.
They didn't include her in their little army because she was far too emotional. So maybe her overacting over the death of Billy has counted against her because it would be very handy for Sinatra to have Jane in there. I thought she would develop into a bit more of an interesting character, but the way that she's just so two-faced is not that interesting to me. And it's also quite disgusting the way that she gets the Presley, the daughter, on her side and takes her away from the action. It's a bit grim.
Yeah, she's not an interesting character. I totally agree with that. And she's really there just to be, honestly, maybe just even a little sexist in this, oh, just little me, and using that as a way to, be like a wolf among the sheep. I mean, that could be a very interesting character, by the way, but I don't think they've done anything with her other than just make her like a sociopath who can walk among anybody and apparently get away with it. That's not interesting to me. That's just like a plot contrivance, not a character.
Well, that's right. I mean, sociopaths could have very interesting backgrounds, but you got to show us.
Like the jackal. So my question to you, do you think they can afford a Guns N' Roses song or they can't? Because we hear 13 seconds max of this song and then they cut it off.
Oh, look, I was stoked that I predicted a bit of Gunners, and I liked that they're in it. It's not a bad cover. I mean, everyone has covered that song, right?
It's a Dylan connection, right? Because that's actually
that's song. It. Yeah, but it's obviously referencing the 80s.
Sure.
The 80s version, and that's going to be on his mixtape, I'm sure.
Of course, have to put that one on there. You got to put GNR on there. Come on. I mean, you did Poison. If you got Poison on there, you got to put Guns N' Roses. That's the real deal. And Jeremy's like 2 seconds of Guns N' Roses, which is probably all they could afford, is cut off when Presley shows up.
Was it the original that they played? Then they had the cover at the end.
I honestly think this is my own conspiracy theory. I don't even think that's the GNR version. I think it sounds like the GNR version because they cut it off before you hear any vocal or anything. But yes, they definitely are. If they couldn't get the cover, the original cover, if that even makes sense, then they were hinting at it, obviously. And then of course we see it in the ending. Probably the least cringy of all these covers we've seen so far.
Yeah, it was fun.
I mean, not even in the quality of the song, but just in its use, because some of the other ones have been so on the nose, even the way they use it in the scene itself. We're knocking on heaven's door. We're knocking on finding out what's going on at the show. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, I did try to make a very literal connection like the others, but I couldn't this time.
They're all going to die next week? Maybe. It's possible.
Maybe that's the title, about the miracles. We're tying into that somehow.
Oh, we see another pattern here that we've seen in the show, that whoever is like in the final moments of the previous episode, like, oh my God, Presley, she killed the president and took the tablet. I can't believe anyone actually believed that. But, that's kind of what is hinted there with the dramatic ending of last episode. Like, how did she get that tablet? And of course, they immediately in this scene kind of say, well, she was just walking by. She found it in the bushes. That's all happened.
Yeah, a little bit random. And they've introduced a symbol, haven't they?
Yeah, this is actually kind of interesting.
I don't remember seeing that anywhere else in the show, but do you have any theories on that?
We did see it only on that bookmark. Kane, the grandfather, had mentioned that that's how he would leave messages for his wife at the library. He'd put these notes inside her books where she would find them. So I guess designated by this bookmark. But then we do see the same flower that's on the bookmark on a jacket. And presumably from when we see someone kind of stumbling near the same place where she finds the tablet, that this is possibly the killer or minimally the person who escaped from Cal's room and probably dropped the tablet at the same time. But what the symbolism of the flower is there another secret society who walks around with these flowers on their backs? That would be a little obvious, I think.
Yeah, that's what it indicates to me, that there's another group within a group that is taking things apart from the inside or trying to take control.
And then Kane would be a member of that group because he's obviously using the symbol.
Yeah, which is a bit dodgy considering that he's suffering from dementia and he's going downhill quite fast, but still contains the access to all these secrets.
In this week's episode, speaking of him maybe having a more benevolent agenda and maybe not being as bad a guy as we think, that maybe he is part of this other secret society working within the billionaire society, that even though he misidentifies Jeremy as Cal, that he does unlock the tablet for him. So even if he thinks it's Cal, he is intentionally letting him see what's on that tablet.
Which is great. And Presley, she wants to get onto that tablet and just search the files to find
what happened
where
to
her mum is. Yeah, what happened to Atlanta?
While all this is going on, this is very funny, by the way. I always have the subtitles on my TV inevitably because it's like my daughter will be playing Roblox or something. So I just have the title on all the time. So if we're watching something, don't have to keep rewinding or whatever. So whenever I turn the TV on by default, the subtitles are always on. And I find it very funny that in the scene where Sinatra is meeting with all the elites and they're all freaking out about what's going on. What's the message in the sky? What are you doing to protect us? That the subtitles just says billionaires clamoring. I love that. It's just like billionaires clamoring. That's like they're always clamoring nowadays.
Yeah, I wonder what a group of billionaires would be called.
A murder of billionaires for sure.
Murder of billionaires. There's a lot of opportunity for a bit of satire in there for a couple of them to jump up and become characters of their own. But apart from the new president, there's really no one.
These guys all got too much cake. The metaphor again, the cake metaphor. Meanwhile, what did you think about this? So Gabriella talking to Sinatra, she asks Sinatra, what does he know that Sinatra's so worried about? It could be the performance. It could be the writing in the show. I was vague here as if she's trying to say, or maybe it's intentional, the confusion, as if she's afraid that this is going to blow back on her, like she's afraid that he will know too much, or if she's questioning Sinatra as in saying, what have you not told me? Did you have a particular read on that?
I thought the latter, but the way that you say the former is probably more interesting, that Tarabi is in on it a bit more and knows a lot more secrets than she's letting on. But I read it as that she was a little bit more innocent and she was talking, what have you done? What does he know? She's probing Sinatra and Sinatra is keeping all her secrets to herself. But that's actually more interesting that Tarabi would be in on it.
I was kind of frustrated with that scene, but now that I've talked it through, maybe they're intentionally leaving it ambiguous so that we can have these two different versions. And maybe I choose to read it that way because it's the more interesting option.
And at least we saw a little bit with that getaway, the billionaires all getting away. At least we saw a little bit of the general populace causing a bit of a scene, because you can't just live your normal life if you're under a dome and you're looking up and you're seeing these words in the sky. You'd want to go light some stuff on fire or throw a couple of trash cans or something, right? And we don't really see any of that. They're just kind of going along just like Sims, they're not really getting involved, which I wanted to see a bit of general angst, bit of rioting in the crowd.
I mean, I think we are going to see that maybe next week. What is the most interesting thematic thing here? There is a version of this story where Xavier ends up being a villain, right? That he brings a revolution and now people freak out and maybe the outside of the compound is breached and puts people at risk. There's a lot of potential negative outcomes if there's no plan beyond revolution in and of itself. And then in some ways he could be the bad guy, or it could be the opposite, right? It could be like if everybody knows now they can be collaborators and they can strategize on how to work with the outside world and, go on exploratory missions. And so there's two very different versions of what society could be coming out of this. And I think that is the ideas that are trying to be explored here. I think the show is now just starting to raise them, very late in the season, obviously, but I don't know how well they'll be explored, but at least they're examining these ideas.
Well, that's right. And Tarabi did say that she's chosen every single person in this society. So I wonder if she intentionally chooses disparate people or people from, I don't want to say left or right, but people with different views or more conservative views, and then people that are willing to explore other viewpoints, or whether she's tried to get a bit of a monoculture in there. And
right, that's a good point.
Is more successful for a society that is cut off from the rest of the world? Is a monoculture going to be more successful long term, or people with different ideas to work towards something else could be more successful?
That's a really good point, actually. She could have potentially selected people who would go along with, a strong leader, for example, people who would say, well, I'll take security. And once again, this is actually a political metaphor as well, lean towards security over freedom. They prioritize that. And then, of course, if you do have that kind of culture, maybe people be like, I'd rather look the other way. I'd rather just have peace. And if bad things are happening outside of my view, I can accept that. But then you make a good point. If she has a true mixed society here, then you may end up seeing people who are like, I want radical transparency. And you have other people saying like, well, I want law and order. And, you could end up with a civil war right there inside the paradise.
I did think of the film Civil War when I was watching this a little bit. Yeah.
If it gets that bad, I mean, at least it'll be over very quickly considering the amount of people down there.
But as you say, these are political coups or a military coup. I mean, it's dire stuff when things come to this. And the way that Xavier's just gone straight for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Is he really thinking about the consequences of his actions? Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm saying that and I don't know if the show is actually going to explore those things, but that is an interesting idea. That imagine he's just like, we're going to grab Sinatra by the neck, put a gun to her head, go on TV, make her spill her beans. And it's like, okay, and now how do we run this place? And now when everybody in the street starts, they all panic and you tell them all the truth. Okay, so now what do you do about that? Do you have a plan, or are we just going to blow this current, world order up? What's the long-term strategy beyond that? Hans Gruber, what is the plan?
Yeah. Oh, he obviously doesn't know about his wife being alive. He doesn't know about the truth behind the people outside the dome, that there could be people living out there.
Right.
You really got to live with your own decisions in this environment. He's not thinking about breaking out just yet.
Then the sign changes again in the sky. Who is Sinatra in 1 minute? This makes her really panic. Of course, this is all a ruse, by the way. They also take the flares from Air Force One and start shooting at the tower. They think that they're being attacked. Everybody panics. She goes, reboot it. So they reboot the sky. This was his plan from the beginning. It's a way to really shake up the populace, to remind them of what they're living under. He makes the Yippee-ki-yay reference. Thank God he watched Die Hard. Oh, by the way, when they have that sign change in the sky, the music starts playing. They're playing Sinatra. I'm not sure if this is Sinatra either or a cover, but I couldn't really tell from the audio. They're playing No, You Can't Take That Away From Me. So I'm not sure if there's any symbolism in the music here.
And I assume everyone knows that she's Sinatra. I mean, or the general population knows. Sure. It's not just a private nickname.
It must be at this point, right?
Yeah.
We see a flashback. You mentioned earlier, Robinson is apologizing to him. You touched on this. Her hair is longer in this flashback. She's fighting with him. We don't know the details of this, but there was some kind of panic that set in the day of when everything happened. So maybe she apologized because it's something to do with picking up the wife, but I don't think he blames her for that. I think that's really, she's putting the blame on Cal for that one for sure.
Which is why he murdered him.
Possibly. Jeremy unlocks the tablet, as we mentioned before. Thanks, Grandpa. The flowers and the bookmark, we talked about all that already. Who else is wearing the flower on the jacket? I don't know. It's a little obvious to be wearing this logo of this organization, if that's indeed what it is.
Yeah, that's right. You're wearing a uniform when you're going to perform the murder. I did like how Jeremy's using his burgeoning pop star persona to rally a few of the public, and they're all just they all just turn and kind of listen to him.
Sure, he's he's the president's son, and he just had that speech. I'm sure everybody saw it. So I'm like, he's got his moment in the limelight there.
But then he loses his girlfriend. She runs away.
Oh God! So then we get to the very end of the episode. Yeah, this is all that thing is irritating. We're going to have to spend a few minutes on it. They trap all the higher ups. They're like the cows ignorantly going to slaughter. Gabriella figures this out and has Sinatra escape just in the nick of time. Of course, they're the last to arrive. Xavier follows them and tracks them down to her residence. As you mentioned, Jeremy has gotten an audience, starts telling him what's on the tablet. The cat's out of the bag now at this point. I mean, you can only imagine that even if 100 people hear him that night, this is going to be really bad for Sinatra. Like, you're really not going to be able to wrap this back up again at this point, I'm pretty sure, especially if he has the evidence in his hand.
And it's the evidence about the 4 explorers being murdered, isn't it?
Oh, it's all of it, right? I mean, theoretically, they have the Atlanta bombing because the Presley, when she has been looking at it before she hands it back to him, she says there's stuff in here about what happened in Atlanta, right? So, and this is also part of the reason I thought about the fact that the Atlanta strike might have been orchestrated by some of these higher ups, because she references here as well. So this doesn't look good for Sinatra and these, elites that are currently huddled up all together with all the guns in this whole area pointing at their heads. Meanwhile, as a little insurance policy, Sinatra has sent Jane to pick up Presley. Damn, girl, this is crazy. So her dad, let's walk through Presley's decisions here. Her dad tells her things are really, really bad. I need you and your brother to disappear, right? You got to disappear. She abandons her brother in the basement with this weirdo, his dog, and the bar owner. If anyone shows up, her brother's out of luck. And then on top of that, she's in the crowd with her boyfriend. He's about to reveal all these secrets. You don't know how the crowd's going to take to this. You don't know if the people are going to start throwing rocks at him or something. Jane walks over and goes, I really need some ice cream. And she's like, okay, ice cream sounds good. Let's go. What is happening here with this woman's decision making?
Yeah, I agree. That was terrible.
She's definitely her mother's daughter, by the way. I love the fact that like Xavier in his conversations with Terry is just like, honey, today Hal was winking at me really, really hard when he was saying like, you're not going to let your wife get on that plane to Atlanta. Wink, wink, wink. And she's like, I got a really important meeting, honey. I got to go. Not the best decisions being made by these women here.
I'm sorry, but you can't change their mind.
It's true. The Sky reboots very quickly, by the way. They're very concerned about how long this is going to take. Think about 15 minutes.
Yeah, it does. Straight away. Oh, wow. What were we worried about?
I thought that was part of the trick, by the way, that Carl had set something up. If they reboot it, something else happens. And maybe that is what we're going to see. But So that's a possibility still. It was pretty funny that they rebooted so quickly. And of course, Xavier shows up at Sinatra's house. Gabriella is waiting for him there. She says, you just need to talk to her. I mean, this lady, really, the talking's not going to work, I don't think. And Sinatra has a little contingency. She reveals it. Hey, I have a carrot or a stick. Here's the carrot. Your wife, living, not dead. Here's the stick. Your daughter, dead, not living. So which would you like?
She plays it so cool here. Pours herself a glass of red and poor old Xavier. And it's rushing towards the finale. I think there's 2 episodes to go, right? So
yeah, just 2 more.
Yeah, epic. Of course. They do that little tease every episode to get you to hang on.
The one thing that Sinatra does there at the very end that I forgot to mention, she very clearly says, I did kill your friend, but I did not kill the president, but I was planning on doing it. But I didn't do it. I think we were all pretty certain that she had not killed Cal. At this point, there's really no reason for her to lie about it.
And she's holding something. Is she holding something at the end there, or she's?
Oh yeah, she has something in her hand. I thought she was going to turn like a TV screen on or something. That's what she's about to do, because she's basically saying like, I have your wife. She's alive. Do you want to see your wife again? And she's holding that in her hand. So I'm not sure what is going to be the reveal, because he's telling her to put it down. I don't know if it's a recording or if it's a TV screen she's about to turn on, but I'm pretty sure that we'll see more of that next week. Proof of life, basically. And then, of course, we get to the end, that cover of Knocking on Heaven's Door.
Yeah, I hope there's a Spotify playlist somewhere which has all these tracks.
I'm not sure I want to hear these. Like, what was that? I Think We're Alone Now. Oh, you mean the covers, not the originals. I'm not sure I want to hear I Think We're Alone Now, the Tiffany version again. Running just as fast as we can.
And sorry, there was a scene in this episode where Jeremy was sitting down to start listening. Wasn't he going to start listening to the mixtape, or he hasn't found it yet, or he was in the library and then he got interrupted straight away? So
yeah, I think that's just him playing music for himself from like the library collection. I don't think that was a mixtape, but I have my whole theory on what those numbers mean. I'm pretty sure. I mean, we have very limited time left in this show. I'm pretty sure that there's a book with not a bookmark in it, but a CD in it. And that might be.
That's right. The Dewey Decimal System. Yeah, I've been thinking about
That's my theory.
Yeah.
They haven't talked about the numbers in a while, so I think we're going to find out what they are. Usually when they kind of stop talking about the big clue, they're about to just reveal it. Next week should be very busy. We're going to see a flashback to the day of the events, of course. We'll find out, I assume, why they bombed or who bombed Atlanta and how that relates or does not relate to the cataclysm that drove them all there, how the wife survived. There was a whole conversation about how Washington, D.C. and the White House has this bunker, which is nuclear bomb proof. Mm-hmm. And I did wonder, maybe Cal did comply and get her from Atlanta to D.C., which is not a long flight, as opposed to flying across the country when God knows what is happening to go to Colorado. So maybe he was just like, I can't get her here, but I can get her to the bunker. And then she's been there ever since. And if that's the case, then maybe that's what Sinatra has, is like a video feed to where she is or something.
How epic. It's capable of withstanding a nuclear blast. I mean,
I forgot where I read this somewhere, but I don't think you have to go that deep down to be protected. I mean, you don't want it to be like a little hole. It has to be a whole complex down there, but it is pretty crazy that you have that ability of doing that. And by the way, that these billionaires out there are literally building these kind of compounds on the ground.
Mm. And how far away is Atlanta from DC? What's the flight time?
It's probably like a 2-hour flight.
Oh, okay. Pretty quick. Yep.
It would probably be like a 4 or 5 hour flight from Atlanta to Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
So probably much quicker. Or who knows, maybe she was already heading back to DC and he just got away, found a way to get her there. I just felt that because he brought that up as a point of reference that, usually on shows like this, everything that's said has some reference somewhere else, some payoff. Yeah. And then hopefully they do explore some of these themes a little bit more. I don't know if you have time, but first of all, you did watch White Lotus season 2, right? Did you watch any of season 3? Have you watched the first episode?
Yep. More appointment television with the wife. So yeah, we're big fans of the White Lotus, and yeah, I enjoyed the first episode. I loved being in Thailand. I think I had dreams that night of being in the forests and dodging the monkeys. So yeah,
beware the monkeys for sure.
Oh mate, I've encountered a couple of savage monkeys in Indonesia and Malaysia, and yeah, you don't want to take them. They will get you. Yeah, I've been to Thailand, and I remember trying to cross a bridge once, and there was a monkey guarding it with some type of food, and I got close and tried to take a photo, and this monkey just charged me, and it was frightening. Me and my friend bolted. It looked savage.
Yeah, the only time I've been surrounded by monkeys like that was when I went to Gibraltar. I haven't been to Asia, Southeast Asia. I haven't been to anywhere in Asia, actually, but I'd love to go there. I know you're much closer to it than we are over here. Mm-hmm. And that's quite a flight, at least 3 flights to get all the way out there, like they reference here in the White Lotus show itself. Yeah, those monkeys are tricky, and they're strong, and they will take all your food if you offer it to them, or even leave your car unlocked. So do not mess with the monkeys.
Absolutely. It's a no-brainer.
And don't feed them. Do not feed the monkeys.
Never.
Never. I'd like to do a little check-in here. What was your wife's interest level with this week's episode of Severance?
She was back on board. I think she liked the familiar office setting. Yeah, she's back on board. I enjoyed it. I like the detail that you were saying in your wrap-ups about the poster, the hang in there poster with Dylan. Oh, just that is brilliant. I didn't notice that was the picture of him holding those doors open or holding those switches on. That's just insane.
It's just amazing that Lumen would actually use the artwork there. It's pretty incredible.
Incredible. Yeah. It's ticking along really well. Loving it. It's great, Severance.
I did want to do that check-in because I knew exactly what you were going to say. My wife's exactly the same thing. She's like, oh, thank God, no goats, no, outdoor retreats, just back in the office again. Thank you. That's what I want to see.
Which is amazing, isn't it? When you've got a set like that, which could be quite claustrophobic.
Yep.
But it's like, no, that's what we want to see.
Exactly.
The only small
I want to see them
that,
in their cubicle or their tripod.
Instead of 4 desks, there's a 3 desks now. That's the change. That's all the change that we can handle.
That's all you get. Oh, and the picture, of course, you Photoshop them out of the picture.
Yeah. Oh, poor Ev.
Poor Irving. So, all right. Thanks again for the conversation.
Okay. Cheers, Victor. Bye.
All right. Talk to you soon.